welcome to Farm Here Daily, a Field Forward podcast. I'm your host, David Geiger. Today on Farm Here Daily, Dan Halstrom with the U.S. Meat Export Federation joins us to go over the state of exports as well as the new America First Trade Promotion Program. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media at Field Forward Pod. We would love to have you join our community, keeping folks informed about what is affecting our farmers. This is Farm Here Daily. And joining me on Farm Here Daily, we're going to take a look at U.S. meat exports around the globe. And to do so, we have with us the expert himself, President and CEO of the U.S. Meat Export Federation, Dan Halstrom. Dan, thank you so much for joining us on Farm Here Daily. I hope everything's going well ahead of Thanksgiving. And tell us a little bit about the state of, as you see it, of U.S. meat exports.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. I think if you look at the overall scenario the last 3 to 6 months, I mean, there's been a lot of noise. There's a lot of information. We still have a strong U.S. dollar in some of these Asian markets in particular. You still have a very weak economy in China, for example. But despite all that, demand continues to be very, very good. In fact, I would say record-breaking in some markets. And when you consider where beef pricing has been and beef supply in general the last 6 months, I think that's a testament to just how good the demand is, because our key customers around the world continue to demand our products, including beef, pork, and lamb.
When you're looking at that demand being strong, I've been hearing that a lot of that has to do with a move to premium meat, premium cuts. Is that true?
Well, I think what you're hearing there is, if you look at the beef side, especially, it's very easy to see. 86% of our production is choice and higher on the grading, and a very high percentage of prime and upper 2/3 of that. So I think what you're seeing is in terms of premium, that would be the premium quality that really differentiates us from our competitors around the world. And I think that's exactly right. I mean, I look at markets on the beef side like Mexico, like Central America. It wasn't too long ago, 5, 6, 10 years ago, they would only buy select and no roll when the price was right. And now they've shifted. Some of these major buyers like a Costco, like a Walmart, and many others have shifted to choice and higher, and in some cases upper 2/3 choice and CAB and even prime. And I think the reason they've done this is the eating experience is very consistent. They don't mind paying a little more for high quality and a consistent experience, and they get that with the higher grading U.S. beef.
I heard a general feel was during the pandemic, when folks in the supply chain weren't working quite as properly, there were some producers who just had to feed their cows for another couple hundred pounds. And when they did that, they learned it increased the value of the meat that it came from that cow. And so there have been some that have shifted to that as more of a norm. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, feeding them a bit longer, but it's deeper than that. I mean, it's genetics, it's overall days on feed. It's the inputs that go into the feed, the high quality corn, and in the case of pork, the high quality U.S. soybeans. So I think it's a combination of things that really contribute to that. But one thing is for sure, that the consumer is willing to pay for it, and you see, 15% is all really that we have select and lower, and I think that's just a testament to the demand for the quality, even in times where the cattle supply is short, like we are now. The first question we're getting is not why is the price so high relatively, but the question we're getting is how soon will you see heifers retain and more of an expansion in the meat supply? So I think the global consumer is getting more and more educated and tuned in to what really drives their satisfaction with U.S. Beef and pork for that matter too on the pork side. So I think we're in a pretty good position considering where we're at with the supply and demand models.
There is a lot of variability in the marketplace when it comes to livestock. Why is it important to continue to focus in on and promote exports of U.S. beef, pork, lamb products?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. More customers are better than less customers at a very basic level. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to maximize the value of the supply chain, the value of the carcass, whether it's a beef carcass, a pork carcass, or a lamb carcass. And some of the places around the world that we export to, their definition of what's needed in the center of plate might be different than we are here. We think of ribeyes, tenderloins, strip loins as center of the plate here on the beef side, whereas a tongue, a beef tongue, or a short rib or a short plate might be center of the plate in places like Korea or Japan.
What we
And I
would call
think
variety meat.
the variety meats would be your tongues, your stomachs, your intestines, and things like this. The vast majority of which are exported, and you look at our total value contribution into the supply chain. We are about $410 per head on the beef side, and more than 10% of that is variety meats. So you're looking at $45 to $50 a head in the variety meats. So I think that's the real key, and the same thing applies for pork. Where would we be at on the pork carcass side if you didn't have exports? Well, you're talking about $67 a head, and I really hate to think what the ham value and the loin value and the variety meat value would be if you didn't have those exports.
Dan, you are going over some promotion and the importance of exports here. Recently, there was an announcement of the America First Trade Promotion Program. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's about and how you all plan to engage with it?
The USDA and the White House have rolled out support for increased support for the international market development of agricultural products. And the America First Trade Promotion Program was announced last week officially. And this is the purpose of this is to help drive demand and create partnerships and really jumpstart even more than they have in the past the payback to agriculture from these international markets. And so what this does, there's a cooperator community of organizations, trade organizations such as ourselves, that will go in and will make a formal request into USDA FAS, and this is focused on complementing our existing commitments we get from industry, pork, beef, lamb industries, and it helps to supercharge that investment with government dollars that help the industry dollars go further. So while our interest is beef, pork, and lamb, there's a lot of other commodities involved: soybeans, corn, lumber. The list goes on. So it's a real push to support agriculture, and let's be honest, the with the growing population and growing middle class outside the U.S., this is that with 95+% of the population outside the U.S., this is the growing area, is the international marketplace, outside the U.S.
A common conversation has been the trade deficit and focus on the trade deficit. Is this a way to help even the odds a little bit across the globe?
Yeah, I think without a doubt, this is one of the tools in the toolbox. I think that and the focus is there, and the value that we just talked about a few minutes ago. The goal is to grow that value. I mean, it's $410 a head on the beef side. It's $67 a head on the pork side, and they're both growing over time, right? And nothing happens overnight. It takes years, if not decades, to establish some of these markets. We've been in Japan over 50 years, for example. We've been in Mexico over 35, 40 years, and as an industry. So this is designed to help defend the share in those existing larger markets, but it also gives us an opportunity to really jumpstart the development in emerging markets. And I'm thinking of places like like the Philippines, for example, like Vietnam, African region in general, West Africa, Central Africa, and Central America would be another very good example. So it's exciting. We're very supportive of USDA and FAS. They're wonderful to work with, and the agricultural industry is very appreciative of this opportunity.
Dan, as you look at that opportunity, you mentioned that folks aren't really asking about why it's so expensive, but more how do we increase our herd sizes or increase the amount of what we produce. How do you see the future here as we move forward? Because we have had a couple years of low cattle herd size here in the U.S. and pretty even levels of hog production. What is the move forward as we look at this high level of demand?
Well, I think one of the bright spots that agriculture, whether you're in the beef industry, pork industry, lamb industry, corn and soybean industries, is that demand is growing globally. Um, Now, it doesn't happen overnight. As I mentioned earlier, it takes time to develop these markets. It takes time to really see a lot of the payback. But that being said, growth is there. And another exciting aspect, if you look at Latin America, uh, Mexico, Central America, you look at places like Africa, the Middle East, you have an extremely young demographic. In the African continent, I believe the average age is between 19 and 20 years old, and a very fast growing dynamic. So, what's going to happen is if we can educate this younger generation globally as to the benefits of US beef, US pork, US lamb, whether it's nutritional benefits, value benefits, taste benefits, we're going to see a revolution of demand, protein demand, kind of like we're seeing in the US today. Imagine if that were to happen globally, where you have these consumers getting on the bandwagon, where they get those attributes, but then you throw superior taste on top of it versus some of our global competitors. And I think that's a pretty good recipe for success in the sense of increasing the values of the cutout, increasing the value of our livestock, and hopefully over time, increasing the size of our herds.
Dan, as one final note, as you guys are participating with the America First Trade Promotion Program, as you guys look forward towards the holiday season here, what are some of the ways you all are getting involved or looking at these initiatives that folks can see? Is there a place they can go?
Well, I think the benefit of of all the government support on international market development, including the newest one, the America First Trade Promotion Program, this allows us to increase our bandwidth, as it does the rest of agriculture. Develop more partnerships, more relationships in some of these markets. Expand the bandwidth within a market you're already in, but do more. New products, new programs, new ideas, social media. The list goes on. And it takes time, it takes effort to do all these things, and ultimately it takes investment to do it and invest in the future. So this is, I think, is the exciting thing, that not only USMEF but all of our sister cooperators that are involved in these sorts of programs. It really allows us to think out of the box, and like I said, we want to protect those larger markets, of course, but let's work on some of these medium to small size markets as well, because 5 or 6 years from now, they might be much bigger than some of the markets we have today. So you really have to keep your eyes open, and this allows us to do that.
Dan Halstrom is the president and CEO of the U.S. Meat Export Federation, joining us on Farm Here Daily. Dan, thank you so much for your time today.
Yep, my pleasure. Thank you.
This is Farm Here Daily, a Field Forward podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Again, in order to continue to produce this type of local content, we would love to have you join our community, so please follow the podcast as well as our social media channels at Field Forward Pod. You can also find me on social media at Geiger Reports. Again, I am your host, David Geiger, and I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody.